Many years ago, in a quiet estate in Abuja, there lived a man named Chibike who had a good job, a good wife, a peaceful house, but a very noisy mind. Everything in his life was working well, except for his imagination, as his imagination worked like a generator that refused to go off. Chibike was well respected by people because he looked serious, walked fast, and wore glasses, but inside his head, small madness was dancing barefoot. He worked in an office with positions that had long titles like Senior Technical Assistant to the Assistant Senior Technical Advisor. His job was not difficult, but it was stressful, as he had to pretend every day that he understood statistics, when in reality he only understood the salary dates. His co-workers were mostly married men who loved to sit in the break room and break each other's brain with stories that had no facts but contained plenty fear. Now, that break room was where Chibike's paranoia grew wings. His wife Amarachi was a secondary school teacher who loved routine and peace. She woke up early, prayed, swept the house, made breakfast, kissed her husband's head, and went to school to teach the children. She was simple, straightforward, and loyal, but she had one problem. She married a man who feared betrayal more than poverty. Before the marriage, Chibike was a romantic champion. He bought cake, wrote sweet messages, sent flowers, and even sang off-key love songs outside her window once until a neighbor shouted at him to shut up. Unfortunately, after marriage, he slowly changed because marriage did not remove his past trauma. In the university, he once dated a girl called Norma who cheated on him with a student pastor who prayed louder than him. As such, Chibike carried that wound into adulthood. Every woman he dated after that suffered from his suspicion, even if she had no idea what he was suspecting. When Amarachi married Chibike, at first, everything was sweet like banana bread, until one day at his office canteen, when his married friends began their usual group fear meeting. One man said with a heavy voice, "My brothers, let me tell you, marriage is not for boys." Another one nodded with a wisdom that belonged to goats and added, "If you trust women 100%, you will suffer." Another man spoke with a mouthful of puff-puff. "These days, wives are online doing rubbish. A friend of my cousin's neighbor discovered his wife was dating her gym instructor. They all gasped like prophets receiving vision." Chibike listened quietly, but his heart was shaking like a water bottle inside keke napep. His friend Kunle then added salt to the fire and said, "If you want to know a woman's true character, pretend to be sick or broke, then you will see her real face." That was how Chibike went home that day with a new mission. He began small tests. First, he pretended to be asleep to see if Amarachi would sneak out of bed to text a man, but she did not. She only pulled the blankets and whispered, "This man snores like a diesel engine." He ignored that one. Next test, he switched off his phone for 5 hours to see if she would panic and cry. She called him once. When it did not go through, she left a voice note saying, "Your battery is probably dead. Please buy bread on your way home." He was offended that she did not cry deeply for him, but still he moved on. Next, he pretended to be broke. He sat on the bed one evening and sighed dramatically. Amarachi asked him, "What is the problem?" He replied, "Money has finished." Much to his shock, she said, "Okay, no problem. I have small change. Let us manage till salary comes." She did not panic or insult him, and he was confused because he had expected Hollywood reaction with background music. Still, his paranoia did not reduce. He started reading hidden messages into everything. If Amarachi smiled at a message, he would assume it was from a man. If she dressed nicely for work, he would believe she was going to impress someone. If she said she was tired, he would think she was pretending. Meanwhile, she was simply living her life as a normal teacher handling children who refused to write notes. One Saturday night, Chibuike was scrolling social media when he saw a story about a man who faked his own death to test his wife's loyalty, and the wife fainted 3 times. The story was fake, but Chibuike believed it like the scripture. Then, in the comment section, someone wrote, "My uncle faked deafness for 1 year and caught his wife cheating." That comment pinned itself to his soul. He did not sleep that night. He kept rolling on the bed, thinking of experiment ideas. The next morning at work, his friend Kunle continued from where he stopped. He said, "My guy, if you want to know true love, create scenarios. Women are clever, so you must be cleverer." Chibuike asked, "Should I fake deafness?" Kunle shook his head. "Nah, nobody respects deafness in this country. Fake blindness, that one is powerful." Chibuike turned that idea over and over in his head like puff-puff frying in hot oil. Blindness, it was extreme, but his paranoia liked extreme things. He imagined Amarachi guiding him around the house, feeding him, reading to him, and revealing her true motives. His head started swelling with excitement and small foolishness. After closing hours, he went to a pharmacy and said with a straight face, "Please, I need eye drops that make the eyes look tired." The pharmacist stared at him suspiciously but sold him one for dryness. Chibuike went home and practiced fake blindness in the bedroom mirror for 30 minutes. He walked slowly, stretched his hand forward, bumped into a bucket and said, "Ah, my eye!" He practiced sad lines such as, "Darkness has swallowed me," and "God, why me?" He even practiced tripping small when a chair touched his leg. When Amarachi came home, she met him sitting in the living room wearing sunglasses indoors like a struggling musician. She asked, "Why are you wearing shade inside the house?" He whispered, "My eyes." She rushed closer and asked, "What happened to your eyes?" He slowly removed the sunglasses and looked up at the ceiling like a tragic actor. "I cannot see anything." Amarachi screamed so loud that the neighbor's dog barked. She dropped her handbag, removed her wig and shouted, "You cannot see? Since when?" Chibuike replied sadly, "Since morning. There is darkness everywhere." She did not even think it was acting, because what wife expects her husband to fake blindness for no reason? She called a neighbor. The neighbor called the security. The security called his cousin, and within minutes, people gathered in their living room. Amarachi was crying and fanning him with her wrapper. Somebody said, "Let us take him to the hospital." Immediately, Amarachi carried her bag and practically dragged him to the car, while he secretly opened one eye small to avoid the door frame. While they drove to the hospital, Amarachi kept praying, "God, please heal my husband. Please don't allow blindness to be his portion." Chibuike heard her voice and something pinched him inside his chest, but he quickly swallowed it because madness was already in motion and there was no reverse button. At the hospital, the doctors ran tests while he lay there pretending to see nothing. Amarachi stood by him holding his hand. One doctor came and said, "We do not see any major damage. His eyes are reacting to strain. We'll refer him to a specialist. For now, he must rest, stay away from screens and use these drops." Amarachi cried in relief. Chibuike secretly smiled inside because he believed his mission was working perfectly. He imagined that soon Amarachi's true loyalty would reveal itself like a special effects scene in a movie. When they returned home from the hospital that evening, Amarachi started acting like a woman who had just been told that her husband's eyes borrowed money from darkness and refused to refund it. She held Chibuike's hands firmly as they walked into the house and kept saying, "Careful, careful," every 2 seconds, even though there was nothing to trip over. Chibuike allowed her to guide him around because it helps the acting look believable. She sat him on the couch, then ran inside and came back with a torchlight and started shining it in his face, left and right, as if she was an immigration officer. He wanted to shout, "Madam, my eyes are fine," but he kept calm and whispered, "All I see is shadow." Amarachi closed her mouth with her hand and started crying again. She wiped her tears quickly and began acting like a trained nurse. She took a pillow and positioned his head properly. She brought food from the kitchen and blew soup for him so it would not burn his tongue. She fed him gently while looking at his face with love and pity mixed together. The food was too hot and it landed on his tongue like volcano. He wanted to yell, "Ah, it's too hot!" But he remembered that blind people do not complain loudly in movies, so he only hissed small. After eating, she told him to rest and she stayed by his side, massaging his hand as if he was a private patient. Chibike was confused because he expected drama, insult, suspicion, evil behavior, or at least hidden phone calls with suspicious men. Instead, he was getting tenderness with interest. At night, Amarachi refused to sleep. She opened the Bible and started reading verses aloud next to him. She read Psalms, held his hand and prayed for healing. "God, please restore my husband's sight. I promise to serve you better. I promise to stop shouting at my pupils. I promise to stop complaining about WAEC syllables. Please, Lord." Chibike lay there feeling guilty because God had no hand in this movie but was being pulled in like an innocent civil servant. Around midnight, she finally slept beside him. Chibike opened one eye small to check if she was pretending like him, but no, she was truly sleeping. He watched her snore gently and thought to himself, "So this woman is actually loyal." Then he remembered the reason he was doing all of this and consoled himself by saying, "Nah, maybe she's forming for now. Let me watch closely." The next morning, Amarachi woke up early before sunrise, baited quietly so she would not disturb the blind man's sleep, cooked fresh yam and egg sauce, and served him on bed. She held the spoon to his mouth and said, "Open." Chibike felt embarrassed because he had hands, but he opened his mouth anyway. After breakfast, she announced she was not going to school. "My husband cannot see. How will he move in the house? I must take leave from work." She picked her phone and called her school head teacher. Chibike did not hear the other side of the call, but all he heard was Amarachi saying, "Sir, please, I need urgent compassionate leave. My husband has lost his sight." There was silence. Then Amarachi continued, "Yes, sir, it is sudden blindness." There was silence again. Then she said, "Thank you, sir. God bless you." When she dropped the phone, she turned to Chibike with a gentle smile and said, "I will take care of you. Don't worry." Chibike swallowed his saliva because guilt was now pressing his throat like a necktie. Throughout that day, Amarachi would not let him walk alone. If he tried to stand, she would shout, "Wait!" and rush to hold his arm. If he tried to sit, she would guide him like a fragile flower vase. If he tried to stretch his hand for cup, she would grab it and say, "I will do it." She even prayed over his eye drops before giving him to use. At night, she massaged his feet with shea butter and sang slow hymn. Chibike was lying there thinking, "Hey, so this is marriage. God, what am I looking for in the streets of imagination?" He knew his imagination had lied to him, but his pride did not want to confess. 2 days passed and the guilt grew bigger. Amarachi started calling relatives to inform them. Her mother called and shouted in Igbo, "Why did you not tell me immediately now? How is his sight? Has he eaten?" Chibike was annoyed because his fake blindness was making him lose peace gradually. By the third day, Amarachi invited her pastor for prayer. The pastor came with anointing oil and prayed passionately while Chibike sat there like a statue. The pastor shouted, "Receive your sight, see light, blindness go, darkness disappear." And every shout landed on Chibike's head like a hammer of shame. After the pastor left, Amarachi asked him, "Do you feel anything?" Chibike wished he could say, "I feel stupid," but instead he whispered, "I feel peace." She smiled and hugged him. Now Now, that hug hurts because love that you did not earn stings like pepper in the eye. But even with all the love and care, his mad curiosity remained. At night, while Amarachi slept, he opened one eye to watch her. She was sleeping peacefully with her phone far away. There was no secret chats, no flirting messages, and no suspicious behavior. She was just a tired teacher snoring calmly. One night, he pretended to be asleep and Amarachi picked up her phone to call someone. His ears stood sharp immediately. Now, evidence will come, he thought. But Amarachi said, "Mama, please don't worry. I'll take care of him. He's my husband." She paused and then continued, "Even if he's blind forever, I will not abandon him." Chibike felt something hit his head like a trailer. He opened his eyes more and saw her wiping tears while speaking. That night, he slept without practicing any blindness techniques because his conscience had tied his hands. By the next week, Amarachi had entered full caregiver mode. She bathed him every morning, dried his back with a towel, dressed him gently, tied his shoelaces, sprayed perfume on his shirt, and then sat him down to eat breakfast like a toddler. Chibike felt humiliated but also loved. His brain was confused because he had never seen this level of devotion before. He planned for betrayal, but now he was receiving loyalty with free shipping. Sometimes, when Amarachi fed him, she would laugh and say, "You used to rush me when I was eating. Look at you now." Such is life. Chibike wanted to laugh too, but he knew that blind men do not laugh during feeding time. During one lunchtime, Amarachi's phone rang. Chibike listened carefully as a male voice greeted her. "Amara, how are you?" Chibike's heart started beating fast like a generator trying to start. Amarachi replied, "I am fine. Please do not call me again. I am married and my husband needs me." She ended the call immediately and blocked the number. She did not know her husband was opening one eye under the sunglasses to look at her like a CCTV camera. Chibike almost removed the sunglasses and shouted, "Ah, woman, you are too loyal." One afternoon, Amarachi sat beside him and rubbed his hand. She said, "My husband, please don't lose hope. Even if your sight does not come back, you still have your dignity and your wife." Chibike turned his face because tears wanted to come out. The worst part was when she extended her stay by taking unpaid leave from school so she could stay home. That one touched him deeply because they were not rich. He knew her salary was the power that brought gari, beans, tissue paper and plantain to the house. He did not ask her to take the leave, yet she did it on her own. He lay on the bed that afternoon regretting every suspicion he ever had. People won't stop coming to visit. Her co-workers visited and her aunt too came with chin-chin. Everyone said, "Chai, Amarachi, you are a strong woman." While Chibike lay on the couch thinking, "Look at my life. I just wanted evidence. Now I have a full community support group." At night, Amarachi would pray and cry beside him. "Please, God, restore him." She would then wipe her tears quickly so he would not feel bad. Meanwhile, Chibike was awake, watching through a small gap in his eyes, feeling the pain of guilt and love mixed with small stupidity. One night, as she fell asleep holding his hand, Chibike turned to face her and whispered to himself, "I am a wicked man." He looked at the ceiling and imagined God shaking his head at him. He tried to sleep, but guilt did not allow him rest. 3 days later, Amarachi looked at his face while rubbing his shoulder and said, "If I could give you my eyes, I would." Chibike froze like cold water. He wanted to shout, "Please don't say that again. I do not deserve original loyalty." But he kept quiet because his mission was choking him already. The next morning, he decided he would confess soon. He told himself, "Let me wait just one more day and find the right moment." Unfortunately, life does not wait for foolish men to choose the perfect moment. Life always chooses its own moment, and usually it is painful and public. The next morning arrived peacefully on the outside, but war was going on inside Chibike's head. He woke up before Amarachi and lay still, wondering how many chapters of foolish foolishness he had already acted. He considered confession again, but his pride said, just wait small, tomorrow you'll tell her. And that tomorrow kept shifting like NEPA lights. By now, he had become a professional fake blind man. He knew how to bump into doors without breaking his nose. He knew how to miss the chair by 1 inch for dramatic effect, how to move his head slowly like someone looking for an invisible world, and how to sigh sadly so that people would pity him. If they gave Oscars for fake blindness, he would have collected a nomination. However, there was one problem. His eyes had started reacting to the same drops he kept using to make it real. The instruction was use 2 drops once a day, but Chibuike was using 4 drops 3 times a day because overacting had entered his bone marrow. Every time he applied the drops, he would say, "We must commit fully," and then squeeze extra into his eyes. After 2 weeks, Amarachi said, "My love, you have to see the eye specialist the hospital gave us referral to." Chibuike wanted to say, "No, my eyes are fine," but he could not because blind men do not argue with logic. So she took him to the specialist. On the way there, he could not do his usual cheating tricks like opening one eye small to see the road signs because Amarachi sat close watching him. She guided him like a baby goat and warned everybody in the walkway, "Please shift, a blind man is passing." Chibuike wanted to disappear because of the embarrassment. Inside the specialist clinic, they waited at the reception. A little boy stared at him for 5 minutes straight, then asked loudly, "Mommy, is that man blind or he just likes sunglasses?" The mother hissed, "Will you keep quiet?" and pulled him away. Chibuike's spirit started shaking. Soon, they were called into the examination room. The specialist was an elderly man with a calm voice and glasses that made him look as if he saw through souls. He examined Chibuike's eyes using a bright light, while Amarachi stood beside him holding his hand. The doctor asked, "Sir, what exactly do you see?" Chibuike swallowed. He wanted to say, "I see shame," but instead he said, "Darkness." The doctor nodded slowly and then asked, "Which eye medications have you been using?" Amarachi quickly opened her bag, brought the small container and handed it over. The doctor looked at the label and his eyebrows went high. He turned to Chibuike and asked, "How many drops do you use daily?" Chibuike pretended to think and said, "Maybe 2. Sometimes even more." Amarachi added, "Yes, he has been very diligent with it. He never misses it." The doctor adjusted his glasses and said, "This medication is for short-term dryness. It is not for continuous use. Overuse can cause corneal swelling, blurred vision, and temporary sight loss." Chibuike's heart dropped like stone. Amarachi's mouth opened slightly. The doctor continued, "Based on the examination, his cornea looks irritated. This can cause temporary blindness." Amarachi turned to Chibuike quickly with panic in her voice. "Temporary?" The doctor nodded. "With the correct treatment, it will clear, but it may take time. What I need to know is, why was he using it this much?" The room became heavy. Amarachi stared at him. The doctor stared at him. Even the eye chart on the wall was looking at him. Chibuike's throat became dry. His pride tried to speak, but guilt dragged it down. The doctor repeated, "Sir, why this much medication on your eyes?" Chibuike opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He shut it, opened it again, and then he whispered, "I was not blind." The doctor blinked. Amarachi blinked harder. The doctor asked, "What did you say?" Chibuike answered weakly, "I was pretending. I thought." Silence entered the room as if it paid rent. He tried again, spilling the words like a broken tap. I suspected my wife. I wanted to see how she would behave. I wanted to know if she loves me." His voice cracked. "I did not plan to use the drops for this long. I just wanted small proof." Amarachi froze. Her face changed from worry to confusion, to anger, to hurt. She stepped back slowly like someone avoiding a snake. She said nothing, not one word. The doctor stared at him like a disappointed father. "You pretended blindness for 2 weeks?" Chibuike whispered. almost for 1 month. The doctor sighed deeply. This is foolish and dangerous. Your sight is now affected by pride and insecurity. Amarachi turned and walked out of the office without closing the door. She just left with silence that stabbed every corner of Chibuike's heart. The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder and said, your eyes will recover with treatment, but the damage you caused in your home, it will not heal with eye drops. Chibuike sat alone for some time waiting for Amarachi to return, but she did not return. He called her once, but she did not pick. After 10 minutes, he walked out with the doctor guiding him. He found Amarachi sitting in the car with tears rolling down her face. She was not wiping them. She just stared at the dashboard like someone watching her hope expire. Chibuike tried to enter the car quietly, but his guilt made the door louder than usual. On the drive home, she said nothing. She did not hold his hand. She did not ask if he was comfortable. She just drove like a robot who had been unplugged from emotion. When they reached home, she opened the door, walked inside, grabbed her pillow and blankets from the bed, and then moved to the guest room without a word. Silence is sometimes louder than anger, and that night, silence was screaming in their house. Chibuike sat alone in the living room, touching his face. He wanted to cry, but tears refused to form because his soul was busy collapsing. He finally whispered to himself, I just wanted confirmation. Now I have consequences. For the first time since the foolish experiment began, he wanted real blindness to take him because facing Amarachi's wound felt harder than darkness. But Amarachi had not even started reacting yet. She needed time for the pain to become words. That night, sleep eluded them both, and unfortunately, morning did not still bring relief to them. Amarachi came out quietly wearing her work clothes. She did not look at him. She did not ask if he wanted breakfast or check his eyes with torchlights. She simply walked to the door, but before leaving, she said without looking up, your breakfast is on the table. Then she opened the door and shut it behind her. The shutting of that door slapped Chibuike more than any insult. She left him sitting there with a plate of yam and eggs that tasted like stones and guilt. For the first time, he ate without her voice, without her spoon hovering near his mouth, and without her saying chew slowly. He tried to use the phone, but his sight was too blurry. Everything looked like watercolor painting dipped in tears. He wanted to call Amarachi, but what would he say? Sorry, I pretended to be blind, or sorry, I used our money to test our love, or sorry, I broke your trust with my imagination. No sentence sounded sensible. Around noon, Amarachi's mother called. Before he could even speak, she shouted in Igbo language that deserved subtitles. So, you pretended you were blind to test my daughter that gave you peace? Is your head paining you? Are you normal at all? Which village taught you this? Chibuike wanted to apologize, but she cut the call after firing rapid bullets of lecture. 2 hours later, Amarachi's pastor called. His voice was calm and heavy. Brother Chibuike, love without trust is prison. You locked your wife inside suspicion and swallowed the key. Chibuike said, Pastor, I am sorry. But the pastor replied, say it to the person you wounded, not to me. And then he ended the call. By evening, the news had traveled to his own family. His sister called him laughing in disbelief. Chibuike, you pretended blindness. Blindness! Of all things, you chose blindness. Hey, your madness is on international level. He wanted to defend himself, but she continued laughing until he caught the call. When Amarachi returned that evening, she walked past straight him to the guest room. He followed her slowly, almost bumping the wall because his eyesight was genuinely misbehaving now. He stood at the door like a child waiting for punishment and said, Amarachi, please Talk to me. She kept folding her clothes and said in a flat voice, talk about what? Chibike swallowed and said, I was afraid you would betray me. Amarachi stopped folding and turned slowly to face him. Her eyes were red, but her voice stayed calm, which was more scary than her shouting. You were afraid of betrayal, so you betrayed us first. Do you know what it means to care for a blind husband? Do you know the fear, the prayers, the tears? Do you know how many nights I begged God not to leave me as a young widow in darkness, and you sat there pretending? Chibike opened his mouth, but she lifted her hand. No, you will listen to me. She sat on the bed and wiped her nose. Marriage without trust is bondage. I loved you. I respected you. I stood with you, and you repaid me with imagination. She shook her head. I cannot compete with your fears. I cannot wrestle with ghosts. He stepped forward and knelt beside the bed. Amara, please, I am sorry. I was stupid. She looked at him coldly and said, stupid is when you wear mismatched socks. This one was wickedness wrapped with foolishness. He tried to hold her hand, but she pulled it away. She continued, I did not stay with you because I am weak. I stayed because I loved you, and you used that love as an experiment. He rested his head on the bed and whispered, please, don't leave me. She sighed heavily and replied, I will not divorce you, but I am not sure you deserve my closeness right now. I need air. That evening, she fully moved into the guest room and returned to work. She continued cooking for him, but now she left the food on the dining table without a conversation. She washed his clothes but did not iron it. She greeted him but did not touch him. She answered his calls but used sentences without affection. The change was not loud, but it was sharp like a new blade. Meanwhile, his eyesight got worse before it got better. The doctor said it was temporary swelling and would clear with rest and correct medication. But Chibike saw it as a holy punishment from heaven's disciplinary committee. He started experiencing reality, real blindness. There was no more need for sunglasses for style or acting. He was now truly struggling to see the edge of a plate, the door frame and the ground. Amarachi watched him struggle, but she did not rush to guide him anymore. The sentence, I need air, had real meaning now. One evening, he sat alone on the couch in the dark crying. He whispered, God, I don't deserve this. He remembered how Amarachi used to hold his hand and pray, and he cried in the dark because sometimes crying is the medicine for stupid people. After some weeks, his sight slowly returned. First, it was blurry, then foggy, then it became clearer. The doctor confirmed his recovery, but Amarachi did not still rush back into his arms. Healing his sight was easy, but healing their trust was an assignment that required patience and humility. So Chibike humbled himself in every way. He cut off his toxic friends by blocking Kunle and the others who planted insecurity in his mind. He started therapy and attended couple classes, sitting quietly while other couples spoke about communication. He cooked sometimes, even though badly, but effort counts. He apologized properly, not once, not twice, but many times without excuses. And Amarachi slowly softened, not because his words were sweet, but because his actions were consistent. One Sunday after church, she returned to their bedroom and placed her pillow on their bed. Chibike looked up surprised and asked, "You are back?" She nodded. Trust is not repaired by tears, it is repaired by growth. He held her hand gently and said, "I will never test your love again." She replied, "Next time, ask questions instead of writing scripts in your head." Months later, during a marriage seminar in church, the pastor asked couples to share lessons. Chibike stood up and said, "I once pretended to be blind to test my wife's loyalty, only for me to end up blind for real because God was tired of my nonsense. I learned that mistrust is a disease and imagination can destroy homes faster than infidelity. My wife did not fail the test. My character failed us. People gasped while Amarachi simply nodded on her seat. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lesson did you learn from the story? Kindly share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!